So we're going to look at two of the OWASP's top 10. We're going to look at number 4 and number 9 today. Like I said, it's not a huge amount of demos. It's just more of a discussion, and we can just talk through it. Could be a little short, a max of 45 minutes. We might even cut it a little shorter, just depending on where we're at. You should definitely get pizza before we go. Before we begin, if you need it. There's a massive amount of pizza back there. I believe that is correct.
Awesome. I'll give you this end, and I'll take this end for you.
Okay. Should come up.
It's ready.
Yeah, it's on its way. It's working.
All right, you're live on it. When you do a quick intro.
Yeah, no worries.
All right, thank you for coming. Appreciate it. This is hosted by the Tech Academy, and we're very fortunate to have Brent Wilson, Dr. Brent Wilson from George Washington University, speak about basically security. And so it's a 3-part series, and this is the second part of that series. If you missed the first part, we have it on our Tech Academy YouTube channel, and you can watch it in all its glory. And then we'll have this one on there as well, and then we're also doing the third one if you can't make it next week. We encourage you to come back. We'll have exciting pizza, soda, and coffee for you. With that, please give a warm welcome to Dr. Brent Wilson.
Thanks. All right, so see, no big fisheye camera. That's awesome. If you were here last week, they had a huge camera. So the OWASP site, as I mentioned earlier, it's really a great place. Now, the last top 10 they came out was 2013. So you think, wow, boy, that's really old. No, it's really not. All these vulnerabilities are still there, and we haven't really solved anything. But they just completed collecting, basically went sort of on an RFP basis, request for proposal, I suppose, for the new set of, we're going to come out with a 2017, I think they're trying to get it out this year. So that'll be the newest top 10 coming out that shows the vulnerabilities. And again, if you're doing development in the web side of things, it really would be very important to spend some time and walk through all 10 of these vulnerabilities, just to understand them. Not that you're going to necessarily be able to do them, but read about them, understand what they are, sort of how they work, and look at the mitigations as well. And the number one was injection. We looked at that last week, and this week I want to look at number 4, which deals with indirect object references, insecure direct object references, and number 9, using components with known vulnerabilities. So I just sort of picked some random ones, also ones that I knew I was going to be a little pushed for time here today, and so something I could get through a couple of them and give you some additional references and resources. So a few things that you need to understand as we go forward. One is the things that I'm going to sort of demonstrate today. You're not really going to be able to read the small print that's on the screen, but that's why I've given you the page. And I apologize for those that are online. Actually, I think I'll pull up the Word document so that when we're referencing it, I can have that available as well. Part 2. So, all right. So I will reference this as well as we go, which is the handout that everybody has. So, the thing that I use not only in my classes but also here today is I use a tool called Matilla-Day. Matilla-Day is actually it's a penetration testing framework that was developed by a number of individuals throughout OWASP and that community. And it's set up so that you can put this on as the front end, if you will, on top of, typically it runs off of like a MySQL on the back end. You can also do this, there's I think a Windows port to it, so you can get this running on IIS with a SQL Server back end, and so that you can experiment with it. Essentially what it is a giant website with every imaginable known vulnerability open, all right, which is good. Gives you an opportunity to essentially to try these things. Can I get it to work? Can I do one of these quote unquote vulnerabilities? Can I exploit that? And again, it's not so that you can learn how to be evil. That's not the point. But if you don't understand your threat environment, you're not going to be able to secure against it. And I'm a firm believer of defense through offense. And here is the same thing, is understanding how do you defend against something. It helps to understand what the offense attack would be. Then you can step back and say, okay, now what do I need to do to defend against that type of attack? So that's sort of the purpose of these 3 weeks. Today, we'll spend in these last, number 4, number 9, we're only going to touch just 3 of the 10. Next week, my goal is to, like I said, I'm going to dive pretty deep. We're going to look at actually buffer overflows. We're going to look at exploiting actual compiled software and memory. And there's going to be stack pointers and memory pointers and a lot of hexadecimal. And so we're going to go low next week. And so hopefully you will all be back. If not, I will have a brand new crowd that won't be, which just came for the pizza. So, all right. So let's look at the first thing, which is this number 4, insecure direct object reference. What are we talking about? Now, one of the things in OWASP, it goes through and it will actually evaluate each vulnerability and sort of give you a high level of, what's the various attack vectors for it, what type of security weakness is it, it sort of rates it from, easy, medium, hard, that type of thing. And because you may not be able to see that in the back, let me just read just this middle part here. Okay, applications frequently use the actual name or key of an object when generating web pages. Applications don't always verify that the user is authorized for that target object. The result in an insecure direct object reference flaw, or this results in an insecure direct object reference flaw. Testers can easily manipulate parameter values to detect such flaws. Code analysis quickly shows whether authorization is properly verified. So what are we talking about? Here's a simple case. You're cruising around on the web and you get to some page and you look at the URL, and the URL has some parameters on it. One of them has some sort of a numeric value. What happens if you just change the numeric value? You might go somewhere else, right? Just a few years ago, Nokia, they're still around. Didn't realize that, did you? But Nokia had essentially a support ticket system type of place where you could go and submit tickets, and it was totally open. So what you would do is if you sent in all your, or you filled out a ticket or trouble ticket, whatever it is, you got your screen and you could go to it. The issue is that it assigned your record a unique key, right? So it assigns it a primary key. That primary key was used as the parameter in the URL. Now, I should be able to see my stuff. You should be able to see your stuff. You shouldn't see mine. I shouldn't see yours. But the issue was in the Nokia system, by logging in, right, as your user, you got to see your stuff. But now you've been authenticated into the Nokia system, into the Nokia application. There was never any authorization as far as, or restriction as to what you can see within that web application. So by simply changing the primary key, I now go to another user's and all their information. Very easy to do. And that would be called an insecure direct object reference. And so using keys, using names, things like that, when there's no check of authorization. Now, if I log in as me, I should be able to put my ID up there, and I should be able to see it. But if I put anybody else's, I shouldn't, because it should check to see, is my user authenticated to see that user's information. And that's what was missing in that application. This is very common. This is a very common flaw. Yes?
What's the difference between authentication and
Authentication
authorization?
is, let's see here, authorization. I always get this, I get it turned around.
Authentication is are you who you say you are.
And right.
Authorization is
What do you
are
get?
you allowed to do this?
Are you allowed to do it? Right.
This sort of thing happens when you authenticate a user and then they're set. You authorize them to make their
But and then there's no check for other authorization.
reauthorize at every access point.
Exactly. That is exactly where this error comes in. Right. You get authenticated, but then, and you're authorized in your initial entry point, and then never authorized again. And then find a way to manipulate and get around to other places. That's this exact issue. All right.
I would think that wouldn't be hard to just figure out goofing off too. Like when my boys were little, they used to like go to a website and then switch the pages, switch the images on the site just by messing with the URL.
Right.
You know, they just mess with it and go to a different image. And they were like, so I would think that wouldn't be very hard to figure out.
So I hope you know what they're doing today. All right, so let's go take a look. I'm going to bring up. So I have a virtual machine I'm using, which I just typed that wrong. I know. Okay. Okay. So what I have set up. So I have just so everybody understands the picture. I'm using just Firefox as a basic browser. I have it set up to use something called Burp Suite, which Burp Suite is an amazing tool that you can set up as a proxy. You can set it up to go out and spider a particular site, and a spider essentially follows all links. You know, so you take home page, and there's 5 links. Well, then that's 5 branches, and then what off of that, and sort of you can say go 4 levels deep, so you get a big picture of what are all the different pages within that site that are known, right? Because there could be some hidden ones. You can have it also do a repeater. So if you grab a packet, you can make some changes and then say, I want you to go ahead and repeat this packet, send it multiple times. Sort of like a brute force attack. You could do that. So that's the tool that I'm using. There's also other tools on I think it's called live HTTP headers. I think I got that right. Everybody familiar with that tool? I want to make sure that's the right one. Live HTTP headers. Yeah. So it's a Mozilla add-on, and essentially what it does is exactly what I'm demonstrating with Burp Suite, in that you can capture packets. So when you send, it's an add-on into Firefox, into Mozilla, and then you can turn it on, and you can go and try to do something, and it will actually capture all of the HTTP headers for all the different packets going to and from. so you can go through and do an analysis of what you're looking at. Very valuable to be able to collect information that way. So if you want to experiment with that, you can. All right, so I'm going to head over to Mozilla, or not Mozilla, to Matilda. Now I realize there's a lot of stuff on this screen. Well, in a moment there will be. Oh, I have Burp Suite turned on. Turned off. Okay. Otherwise it captures everything and doesn't, and then I got to say, okay, go ahead and go. All right, so Matilda is just this, like I said, it's a penetration testing environment framework. I want to get to this A4. So let me just quickly get to a real simple little web page. Now think about this web page. Here's a simple page. All it is, you have a drop down where you're identifying a particular text that you want to see. And if I choose any of them, Intrusion Detection in Computers by Victor Marshall, 1991. Right, these are sort of some classic hacker texts. Right, here's the whole text. So you can quickly see what the functionality is. We have a website, we've got a drop down, we have several files on our file system that when you select a particular item out of that drop down, it immediately will go and serve that file. Okay? Pretty straightforward, seems to be pretty straightforward. This is where we can actually do, these are direct object references, and it's very insecure, and we'll show you why. All right, so the question then becomes, well, how does the page send the request to get that text file? When we hit this, what heads to the server? Right, that's my first question. So what you see in the middle of first page, which has, I realize I didn't page number them, but it's the one that says OWASP A4A9. Right in the middle, let me grab it and we'll look at it. So I'm going to turn Burp Suite on. I know it's tough to see, I get that. That's why I printed stuff out on the page. So we'll come back here. Let's say I want to go get that same file. Okay. So what I have that you can't read is exactly what you have on this page. There is the HTTP that's going to the server. All right, it's a post. The user agent in this case, or the host is localhost. User agent's Mozilla. You can go down and look at the various things. There's the cookie, et cetera, et cetera. Well, what I've highlighted in red, that is the actual, the text file is going to be equal to HTTP:// which has been encoded into URL encoding. So if you look up ASCII, and 3A will be a colon, 2F will be a /. All right, so it's been encoded there. And then the text is just straight text. So there is the actual file. So it says go to www.textfiles.com, which, by the way, is a local website here that I'm hosting. And then you see hacking/audittool.txt. Okay, so the text that we're looking for is actually audittool.txt. That's the physical name of that file. Does everybody follow me? Okay, so in the request itself, we have identified the exact file name that we're wanting to see. As soon as I see that, I'm like, okay, now I have an opportunity to play a little bit, because maybe there's some other files I would like to see that you're not letting me see. So if I'm able to get the right names in there, maybe you could display other things that are outside of what you were intending to. So in this case, I have no idea, again, we're playing this scenario out, I have no idea where that's stored on this server. Boy, it'd be nice to know. So let's have some fun and let's find out. What if I were just to make up crap? Sorry, people online, as though they have better morals than us. Sorry, everybody. I guess I said sorry for anybody who's going to watch it later. Anyway, so if we look at that and say, well, what if I make up a path? And you guys are familiar with paths, yes? Okay. So if I do ... // foo. Basically, I'm looking for the file foo 4 levels up from wherever you're at. That's essentially what I'm saying there, right? I doubt there's a file 4 levels up that's named foo. In fact, I know there isn't. But let's throw it in, because maybe they will display something in the error message that gives me what I need, and they will. But so what I need to do is I need to put that in. Well, I need to encode that instead just type that in, because I got the slashes and things. So I need to encode that for URL. Now this takes a little bit of work. I have the encoding there, where a dot is obviously 2E, right? ... /.. You can see it's encoded. The other thing is Burp Suite, which I love, is that you can type it in, and I know you can't really see it up here, but you can type it in and it automatically encodes it for you. Thank you, appreciate that. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to, let's see, where's Burp Suite? I am going to take out everything that you see that's red on that page, and I'm going to replace it with the encoded ... // etc. And now I'm going to take that and I'm going to send it off to the server. Let's see what we get back. Is everybody following what I'm doing? I have no idea what, I mean I do, because I've did it before I came. But theoretically, I have no idea what's going to happen. I'm just trying to gather information. And the fact that you are going to feed to me from the server the exact file name that I'm telling you is an open door. And the question is, can I get enough information where you might just allow me to see other files? And the whole point of being authorized versus authenticated, I'm in, will you let me see other things on the server without reauthorizing me? So let's go ahead, I'm going to hit forward. That packet goes to the server, it comes back. We're not going to look at this. I'm now have it in the proxy. I'm going to forward it off to the browser. Let's go look at the browser. And now I have some information. I have a lot of information. It tells me that failed to open. There's no such file or directory in /op lamp htdocs matilda text file viewer.php. Right? I now know the file system. I know where we are located. So the simple fact that we're sitting inside the folder matilda, because this is the file that we're messing with. You can see it in the URL, text file viewer.php. So that means I'm in this folder. And so now I could do some experimenting. I could try to back up 1 or 2 or back and forth and try to figure out, it's going to take a little bit of effort, but it won't take too long. Today we're just going to go right for the kill because we know where we need to go. So in this particular VM, all of the whole matilda, the whole penetration testing, that whole environment is actually built into this what's called LAMP P here. That's where it's actually stored. So for us, if I get in, how many people are Linux people at all? I got a few? Okay. For those that are not, Linux for decades, until Ubuntu came in, we won't go there, but for decades it's always had the same file system structure. And you knew if you could get it to the root I know off of root, I have Etsy, I have this, I have that, right on down. In the Windows environment, it's the same thing, right? You got C:\whack, right? There's your root. Underneath that, you know you have the following file system structure for the most part. Well, same thing. And so knowing, and I'm sort of giving you, instead of having to experiment, I'm telling you that if we can get back to this lamp, I can now go anywhere I want. I could go into Etsy. And if you're a Unix person, inside of Etsy is where I find things like your web configuration files, your password files, your you name it, we got it, right? So let's do that. Let's try this again, but this time I want to back up from where I'm at, which is in Matildae. I want to back up 2 levels, and let's try to get something. Notice the next thing on the sheet, which I keep forgetting the people online can't see. So folks online, we just tried this and got the information. Now I'm going to say, well, what if I back up 2 levels, and let's go into the Etsy directory and then try to get into the configuration file for the web. Will it display that for me? So to do that, I need to turn on Burp Suite again. Oh, it is on, okay. I can pick any of these files I want because it just doesn't matter because I'm not looking for those. I'm going to intercept it. How to hold on to unit? Sure, why not? I want to view that file. I've now captured that packet essentially. I'm going to take, oh, I don't have this encoded. So I need to decode, let's see, I want to get rid of, okay, oh, that's right, just leave it there. So I want to go //etsy/http.conf, and I want that encoded URL. Oh, stop. Encode is URL. Okay. So I'm going to take that string, which I have not written, but I didn't give you everything, but you could do the same, right? It's just basically you're checking your, what are the ASCII values for that. I'm going to come back into that packet, and this time replace that, all of that information with my newly encoded information. And so I'm going to back up. I'm going to go into Etsy, again, assuming that I've learned that there is an Etsy directory there. Forward it on to the server. It comes back and forward it on to my browser. And what do I have? Oh, I don't have anything. How about httpd.conf? Oh, I didn't bring my notes. I think, sorry you guys. Maybe, nice, it added the D down here too, I saw that. Copy. Proxy's on. All right, let's try to view the file again. Got about halfway up here and I realized I'd left my notebook at home. I'm like, boy, I hope nothing goes wrong. All right, let's try that one. Forward, back here. Oh yeah, there we go.
Oh my.
So now here's the configuration file for this particular web server that we're running. I should not have access to this file, right? And the whole point is that I may have been authorized once or authenticated, but then not authorized as I'm moving around. And so that's a great example. And here I just was able to experiment with, well, you're giving me a single file, an actual file name off the hard drive, so let me see if I can get to another file that's on the hard drive. How do you prevent it? Don't ask for file names on the hard drive. Right? I mean, but this, even though some of this is pretty common sense. At the end of the day, when you're developing it, you don't think of that. Okay, what file do I need? And you just type that code in, right? Because you're not thinking about the security aspect of it. And that's what these 3 presentations are all about, is to start thinking about. You start writing a line of code, go, is that vulnerable? Those are the types of things. Let's look at this exact. So there's an error on the sheet. That would be HTTPD, as in daemon. Not that it truly matters for you folks, but it's important to have it accurate. Now the same is true for URLs, right? Let's go look at, let me turn the interceptor off. I'm going to go up here and using Matilda, and let's go to, here's a simple page that there's some links, right? And I can click on those links and can go anywhere I want to go. I can go to those 4 places. I'm guessing 100% of us, for the most part in here, have probably at some point written a web page and we've put links on it that take you somewhere. It's insecure, right? Because you're not thinking about that. We tend to trust the human race. That is our first mistake. And so we look at this and go, well, if I click on any of those, I'll go to those sites. And that would be true. But here's what you can do instead. Now I'm going to turn off for just a second here. Let's see here. No, I'll leave it off. Oh, wait. No, we're good. I'm sorry. Thought I got ahead of myself. Last time I did get ahead of myself. All right, so let's turn on, I'm going to turn the Burp Suite on, which is basically capturing the packet. Let's go to, I think the example I have is the Louisville one, which is OWASP Louisville. So if I click on that, Burp Suite captures it, and they're sitting in the actual request, in the redirect, is the actual URL that you want to go to, right? And you think, okay, so what? Well, I could replace that right now with a different URL that I wanted you to go to. And remember, anytime you hit a website, you're bringing cookies and things with you that I could capture additional information. So I could simply have you go to a site that said, who knows, maybe I had some sort of a malicious website, free widgets today. But the first thing it did is it captured all your cookie information and session information and stored that. And you just saw free widgets today, okay, whatever, and you close it. And don't realize that you've actually, some of that your information has been captured. So just like I did a moment ago, I could come along and put in a totally different URL here. Okay, pretty easy to do. So then the question becomes, how do you mitigate all this, right? I'm just sort of looking at time, so I'm going to push ahead here a little bit. So we saw it when you're serving actual named file names off a server. That is insecure. We see that just by listing the URLs, technically it's insecure as well, because we could do the exact same thing. All right, we could change those. So how do we change it? We basically mitigate this by using tokenization. Don't send a file name. Don't send a URL. Send a token, and let the server determine what that token represents. Right? Because then you're not going to be able to manipulate that. The example that you see on the back side of this, I'll go back to, that's actually the URL one. So right now, let me see here, I'm going to turn this off.
No, it's the files.
Oh, that's the files, thank you. I saw URL and I was thinking web. So that's the files one. So here, instead of sending the actual file names, will send the token. And now the cool thing about Matillidae, it has multiple security levels. We've been working on what's called security level 0, which, as you can see up here parenthetically, is hosed. I can actually toggle up. Let me get out of Burp Suite. Turn it off. Let me toggle up to client with only client-side security, which is also just as hosed. That's another thing I want you to remember. And we'll go up one more, which now we're using server-side security. All right. So on server-side security, if we go back to the same text file viewer we saw a moment ago, all right, and I now say, well, I want to look at that file. I'm going to choose the third one down, and I say view that file. That's going to view it because I didn't have the Burp Suite on. Turn it on. Try it again. I want to view that file. Immediately look at what I have. Now you can't see it here, but it's on your page. Bright red, number 1. Do you see it down there? That's the text file I'm asking for. It's on the back page, right towards the bottom. I've now tokenized these files. Instead of actually asked for file name, instead, I've now numbered them. And the code, the server-side code, is directly above it, right? How about a simple switch statement? Okay. What's that? Oh, yeah, thank you. You have people that are online, you have amazing classmates here. They are concerned for you because I keep forgetting you. So what ends up happening is right here where this 1 is, down in this bottom line, you'll see that instead of sending an actual file name, you're sending a token of some sort. That token then goes into the switch, and it's the switch that determines which file. There is no way that I can pull that HTTPD conf file out of this because I'm limited to those 5 tokens. I can put 10 in there. It's not going to serve me anything. Only 1 through 5 will serve. And this can be done also, ladies and gentlemen, in databases and everything else. When you build a table of, and it's got, say, employee data, chances are there are things that are not going to get reauthorized whether you should see a particular piece of data. So instead of employee IDs, because what's the problem using employee IDs? Typically sequential, right? So if I can grab an employee ID, I might be able to add 1 or 2 or 3 or 10 and be able to, especially most companies, employee IDs are going to be, if they're sequential, if I use my ID as a starting point, let's say I use my ID at George Fox, and I use that as a starting point, now I'm looking at people that have been there roughly 25 years, right? Because that's where those employee IDs would come in. So I could make some logical assumptions as to where I want to go for IDs. So tokenizing, and you can do this exact same thing with the URL. You can do this exact same thing all the time. It gives the exact same functionality you're looking for, but the difference is you're limiting or removing that misuse case. And like I said, I can't even count the number of things that I have written that has not done this. Right? Over the years, I've been doing this for a lot of decades, and the more I get into security, the more I hope that I didn't put my name on anything. All right? Because I realize, I start seeing things like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I did in X product. Good thing I was a contractor. But anyway, it's those things that I want to bring forward to you guys. I want you guys to think about that. So when you build a web page and you have a whole bunch of resources, let's say you have 10 resources, and you want to display links to those, don't just display the links to those. Tokenize it. Because if you don't, then it's vulnerable to the ability to manipulate that through this type of vulnerability. So those are things to think about. Now we only have a few minutes, so I'm going to quickly push to the next one. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm a little rushed today. The next one is what's called the vulnerability. Get the exact name. Using components with known vulnerabilities. When I went through about a couple years ago, I went through OWASP for the first time, and I went through and I did every single vulnerability. That was a summer project. I'm going to do it. When I got to number 9, it scared the living you-know-what out of me because I hadn't thought about this. Again, it's one of those situations where I'm just moving forward. It's not whether your code's secure. It's whether the code that your code relies on is secure. And you can't control that. But you should be aware of it. So when you're writing something for a particular environment and you know the type of operating system it's going to go on, you hopefully should say, well, I want to know, okay, it's going to go on a Windows 2012 server. Great. I want to know the build. I want to know the version. I want to know the service pack. I want to, you want that type of information because then you can research and find out what type of vulnerabilities. Now, one would hope that the vulnerabilities that are being found in our operating systems today don't impact you, but that isn't always the case. Okay, so I've given you two websites. Let's just go take a look at one here real quick. Let's go to the CVE. There's several of these, but I'll go to the CVE details. So CVE is Common Vulnerabilities database here, and essentially what it is vulnerabilities are ranked on a scale from 0 to 10, 10 being most severe, and 0 and 1 being least severe, and you can sort of research things. So as an example, let's say you're like, you know what, I just built an application for somebody and they're putting it out onto some sort of a WordPress site. So what does WordPress have? Okay, these are all the vulnerabilities that WordPress has. All right, now it's only had 29 reported vulnerabilities in 2017. So we're only halfway through the year. And so you can start to look at, okay, what are the types of vulnerabilities? Now, I know it's hard to read in the back, but so far this year alone, 1 denial of service vulnerability has been found in WordPress, 1 code execution error, you have to look up what that is, an SQL injection error has been found, 9 cross-site scripting errors vulnerabilities has been found in WordPress. WordPress is horrible when it comes to cross-site scripting. They are very vulnerable. Directory traversal. Isn't that what we did? There's 2 vulnerabilities that have already been exposed. Again, these are known vulnerabilities. This is not all vulnerabilities. This is just what is known. Okay. So then you can go look at any of these. Let's say you're doing some sort of a WordPress site and you're dealing with database stuff constantly on it. The SQL vulnerability would be really important to me to read up on. So I can go read, it's got a 7.5. So, well, that seems a little high, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So we can go read about it, and I know you can't read it all, but confidentiality impact, partial, says there's considerable information disclosure. The integrity, modification of some system files or information is possible, but the attacker does not have control over what can be modified, or the scope of what the attacker can affect is limited. Availability, there is a reduced performance or interruptions in resource availability. Access complexity is low. So specialized access conditions or extenuating circumstances do not exist. Very little knowledge or skill is required to exploit. Authentication, not required. No authentication is required to exploit this vulnerability. Okay. These are things you should know about, right? And again, it's not as though anyone in this room is going to fix this vulnerability for WordPress. but the fact that maybe you don't know about this vulnerability and you build a site that literally is exposed because of it, those are things you as a developer have to consider as risk, right? When you're writing code and developing systems and applications, there is a risk involved with that, and you need to know what your risk assessment is, and this is part of it, is doing those sort of things. And you can do this for absolutely anything out there, ladies and gentlemen. Yes.
How quickly do they resolve these vulnerabilities, like these exposed known vulnerabilities?
I would say the company also performs a risk assessment on, return on money, right? Return on effort. Is this do we feel that this raises to a level that we have to do it right now, right? There are many, many, many more vulnerabilities, obviously, that are out there, right? And every single government in this world has massive vulnerabilities that they know about that they've not told the companies about, and that they will use for zero-day type stuff, right? Because cyber war, cyber terror is really, that's what it is nowadays. And I'm not trying to be a doomsdayer, but it's true. Guaranteed, absolutely guaranteed. And last time I talked about cyber wars in here. Again, for the new people, get it on Netflix. I think you can get it on Netflix. But I know you can get it on Amazon for $17. It will be the scariest $17 you've ever spent. But it's a documentary called Cyber Wars. And I think it's plural. Cyber War or Cyber Wars. And there's 2 seasons of it, and season 1 is available for purchase, I think, for $17.99, $18.99, something like that. So go watch that, and then you'll all choose careers, and it'll be a bad thing. What's that?
Going to farming.
Yeah, going to farming. So
Does it tell you if these are patched?
some, yeah. So some aren't. So like here, real quick. Let's say I choose. Let's just go see what the big ones are, right? So there's this thing called Zen. You can go look that up. I just started going down, looking for things that you guys might recognize. Buffer overflow, Veritas. Oh, Microsoft. Yeah, let's look at them. So here is a vulnerability from Microsoft, which is dealing with their malware protection engine. And this was reported May 26th of this year. I love just watching faces right now, right? John, right?
Quick question. Most of these vulnerabilities, private or closed operating systems like Windows, or are they open source?
Yes, everything. Everything that's known. And so, yeah, you can look up Linux and different kernels and all that stuff. You got a weather bug app that you're using, you can look it up. Is there a known vulnerability in that? And things like that. So, yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple. And the other one is the National Vulnerability Database put on by the National Institute of, what's ST? Yeah, stands for, thank you very much. I can use acronyms, I just sometimes can't say them. Anyway, so this is something that's very, very interesting, and you should spend some time. If today when I go to build a system, if I'm building for a client, first thing I'll do is I find out in the specs what's the environment I'm working in, and I want it down to the build if at all possible, because I can search this for what OS, for what apps, for they're saying, okay, we need the following. We're going to be running. They come and say, well, we're going to run. We're going to have a database in the back end, and we want this thing to tie into that database. Okay, what database? What version? What OS? What? Right? I want all those specs, because all those specs I go right here, and because I want to know, even though I can't change that, it at least gives me information as a developer as to how fragile is the house of cards for which I am building my app on top of, right? Or if you go and get third-party libraries, right? I've done a ton of that, where I'm writing something and then I can look at, I could develop it all, do a quick search on the web. Oh, a company already has this pre-canned library that I could use. I should be checking that library. Are there known vulnerabilities in it? Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, that sort of brings me to closure. I'm a little late, but that's okay. We'll be fine, because traffic is not a problem from Portland to Corvallis.
On a Friday afternoon.
On a Friday afternoon. Yeah. But anyway, again, I just as a closure, and then is simply the intent of last week, this week, next week. Again, isn't that you guys are going to, solve all these problems. I'm not going to solve all these problems, but at a very minimum, raise the level of awareness. So as you code, not only are you thinking about what does this have to do, what functionality does this have to achieve, what happens if something goes wrong, and third, can it be manipulated and exploited? And that's the third piece, the third leg of the stool that I want to bring to the table. All right. Have a great day. Grab some pizza, because there's massive pizza back there.
Yeah, but before you head out, a quick thanks to Dr. Brent Wilson for
Thank you.
And just a reminder, the first video is available on our YouTube channel. If you've never been to one of our events and not had a chance to fill out a survey, we're not going to fill the survey out. If you have, you don't have to. If you want to leave feedback about this event, you can also fill out a survey. You're welcome to. With that, thank you for coming, and have a great day. Again, you're out the pizza on the way out.
Yes.
I really enjoy your presentations. They're very good.
Well, thank
I'm
you.
a graduate of code academy.
Yeah,
I work
nice.
for a company called Blue Sky Security.
You guys are in it,
We
man.
have a very interesting area that we use as artificial intelligence, machine
Yeah,
learning.
yeah.
Essentially surrounding a connected device with a halo that watches behavior, learns behavior,
Yeah.
does something wrong.
That's awesome.
It's pretty cool stuff.
That is cool.
I know you're in a hurry. I'd like to connect with you sometime, and I'll show you what we have, get your opinion.
Are you clear up north?
No, I'm here in Portland. I just work out of my house here in Portland.
Oh,
The guys
okay.
headquarters up in Washington. They're
Sure.
also from China.
Sure.
The guys work with China Telecom. They work with Alibaba. They work with a number of pretty
Right,
cool
right,
things.
right.
But trying to get traction here in the U.S. So I really value your opinion. So maybe I'll reach out
I
to
would
you
love
next
to.
week.
I'd love to.
Show you what it does. And
Oh,
get your
this is
opinion.
huge. Oh my gosh, mobile and IoT. Jeez.
You would think that I tell you what you're talking about with all the preparation and careful coding.
Yeah.
Put it out there because you want to get to market. That's the thing.
I know.
All the devices just want to get to market. They don't care about what
I know.
you
That's
said.
what
I agree with that.
That's what I'm saying. No, I'm not saying that securing that this is all big deal. I'm saying that's our issue because people aren't
They
securing.
don't. Yeah, they don't, and they don't want to know about it either. It's very difficult. I'll explain later when we have
Right.
time.
Yeah. I know. I'd love to chat.
Yeah.
But I do got to roll.
Oh, I understand.
So,
I understand.
yeah.
So I gotta tell you, those Pintos, but I did see a white new AMC Pacer driving up 217 the other day.
Pacer. Oh my God. Yeah.
I told my wife, I was driving up 217 and I just went,
So do you remember?
it
and
really
again, I
looked
don't.
like new. You know?
Yeah. So back in 1970, would have been 79. Taco Bell had this contest. Do you remember this at all? How many pinto beans fit inside of a Ford Pinto?
Wow.
Right? And you could fill out at Taco Bell, you could fill out your guess and stuff. I had one of my friends, very anal retentive. He built himself a 1 cubic inch little box, right? And then took pinto beans, got them in there as tight as he could and as loose as he could. Now he had his bounds, and there was no penalty for entering as many times as you want. And so he entered, oh my gosh, thousands upon thousands of times, and he won one of the pintos. They were giving away 5 pintos that year from Taco Bell. So he won one of the pintos, and that was always.
I learned to drive stick on a Pinto.
There you go. Yeah. So anyway, you're welcome. Well, thank you very, very much. Appreciate it.
And later, I think I will email you, but I have something about encrypted email situation
Okay.
that I would like to
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
advice
Ping me.
on.
Ping me. We'll talk. I got to roll, unfortunately.
Go.
So.
Go, go, go.
Thank you so much. I knew that go complete, but
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm good. I think that went well.
All right, good. Good to see you. Great. Look forward to next Friday.
Thanks.
Good luck at you.
Take care. So all it boils down to figuring out what, like,
Working.